Hello, in this video I'm going to analyze the insanity that is Sukuna versus MAHORAGA. To be more specific, I'm going to analyze some of the animation and visual elements of the fight. I'm pretty sure many of you have heard about what was going on at Studio MAPPA and with the Jujutsu Kaisen animators. It's crazy how even under these rough circumstances the staff was able to deliver animation of this quality. They poured their soul into drawing these scenes. The passion really came through every single frame. Like, imagine what would have come out if they had been given more time. We should really be grateful to these animators and all the staff members, background artists, in-betweeners, cleanup artists, colorists, compositors, the list could be continued. But let's get into the video now. First off, let's clear up what a sequence and a scene mean in animation in case any of you doesn't know. In animation, whenever the background changes, we get a new scene. This is what we call a shot in live action. So a scene is what we can see between two cuts basically. Sometimes I will use the word scene, but sometimes I will say shot simply because I don't want to repeat the same word so many times. A sequence is a series of scenes that are grouped together by location. As soon as the location changes, we get a new sequence. I won't analyze the whole fight and episode because I know you don't want to sit through a 4-hour-long video, so I picked a few sequences. Also, the sequence numbers are obviously not identical to the original numbers of the ones of the episode, but I named them so that the video is more organized. And as this whole episode is very chaotic, fast-paced, and contains many location changes, I could have broken down the sequences I picked even further if I had wanted to be very accurate. But I'd like to keep it simpler and more understandable for the sake of the video. I wish I could analyze even the sound though, because the sound design goes crazy in Jujutsu Kaisen. Oh, and I apologize to the JJK stans if I say anything dumb regarding Sukuna's curse technique and domain expansion. Also, I know that MAHORAGA's name is actually makora if we read the kanjis of his name, but as the obvious translation refers to him as MAHORAGA, and as in Buddhist mythology, MAHORAGA is the Sanskrit pronunciation of his name, I will also call him that. Though in the translation in my language he's called makora too, so yeah, whatever. And of course, before I start analyzing the first sequence I picked, let's not forget to give credit to the amazing animators. This is very important, okay? Alright, first sequence. The effect lines here emphasize the horizontal movement of Sukuna in the air. Then we have this very quick movement of raising his arm up, then phew, comes down very quickly again. The motion blur frame emphasizes the movement really well. It seems like they added an extra blur effect both to the lines and the color layers. As he moves further from the camera, his arm comes down again, then 1, 2, 3, this time only his hand moves up. Then we have this very quick shot of his cleave. Three lines crossing each other. Right after that you can see a very dynamic scene. The character's movement starts slowly, the cut is quick, then the movements slow down again. I really like how Sukuna's body turns around its axis while he's still in the air, very great movement. When the cleave reaches MAHORAGA, the Shikigami's spine goes from bending inwards to outwards. Look at how the blood almost explodes out of his body as it gets cut through. As the cleave reaches even the walls, it leaves lines and cracks there. Plus, these two frames at the extreme of the movement are blurred, which give more intensity to the animation. The movements of the camera add even more to the whole scene. Sukuna lands, nice camera blur and movement. He cleaves. We can see motion blur frames again. MAHORAGA attacks, cut, camera pulls out. We also have a quick flash. and as they get pushed by the attack to each side, we can see their movements starting slow and then boom, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames they almost blast out of the screen. Pay attention to the small effect lines again. As the movement builds up, the circle they form becomes bigger. Then we get this really nice animation of the air circling, the circle growing and then blurring. I really like the clever usage of both motion and camera blurs, by the way. Plus, can we please talk about the composition here, because this is insane. Look at how the crosswalks form a triangle, and also at how both the effect lines and the concrete are forming circles. We can break this triangle down to smaller ones, which are literally right triangles too. Genius. And then cut, MAHORAGA flies into the frame. This is literally only 2 drawings, but because of the pieces flying and the shaky camera movement, we can clearly see what's happening. Also, my son, poor Megumi, he's just chilling there, not knowing what's happening around him. Let's ignore this motherfucker. And then we have a goofy Sukuna flying, which is 2 frames again.
Gambare.
The way the camera turns after him is just so smart, it really gives the effect of someone recording these scenes. Alright, so the next thing I want to show you is this popcorn scene, which connects the previous and the next sequence so damn well. We have these blurred, aesthetically pleasing lights in the background. Look at how the popcorn pieces fly up starting slow. Then to the right, with a very quick movement, we have both a motion blur and a whip pen here. And then cut, we see MAHORAGA blasting into the building, flying just like the popcorn before. He's holding Sukuna's head, pushing him into the glass wall. I like the perspective and how they animated the glass pieces also. Then he throws Sukuna with a huge force and speed. He's tiny, but we can still see him flipping around in the air. And then look at how he lands on his palm. Again, I really like how the camera catches up with the movement. Also, look at how he catches his balance after he touches the wall. How he's balancing himself on one hand, his body being parallel to the ground. Okay, and then this. Look at how he lifts his head up and look at that facial expression. Oh my god. His pupils being tiny, his eyebrows, that evil laugh. I'm not a Sukuna stan, but these facial expressions are so fucking insane. This makes you want to animate unhinged characters like him.
本物の呪術というものを領域展開
These 2 scenes next to each other look so good, especially with the camera movements. Like, oh, okay. Next, we can see MAHORAGA literally blasting himself from the wall. I would like you to take a look at how the glass wall of the building is exploding. And then as he is coming closer to the camera with a crazy speed, all the glass pieces are starting to slowly fall down. As he's gradually getting closer, the background is becoming blurry. You must have noticed that there are so many cuts here. These scenes are very fast paced. I mean, look at how MAHORAGA flying from one building to the other and out of the screen is only 21 frames, which is not even a second. Okay, next thing. This movement of Sukuna jumping from his palm being upside down is so crazy. Look at his little grin. This is literally just 1 frame, but I love how the animator still drew that grin. And then nice motion blur of his hand on the last frame. Then boom, MAHORAGA blasts into the wall. He's starting to chase Sukuna, literally plowing that damn wall. This scene is so fucking insane. Just look at how he is chasing him, the animation of the wall, the buildings in the background. The way he hits his fist into the concrete, how Sukuna is pushing himself up and jumping to avoid getting hit. The FX animation is insanely good as well. As the rocks get out of the frame, we can see him appearing again. And then, this motherfucker. literally is doing back handsprings going up on the damn wall, and the way this is animated blows my mind. Like, bro, okay, first we get a little sneak peek of those silly little flips, but then wait for it, we can see MAHORAGA blasting out of the smoke and concrete, and cut. Here it is. This is one of the craziest action scenes I've seen in my entire almost 10-year long anime watching career. This bitch is doing handsprings going upwards on a building while a giant ass Shikigami is chasing him like he's butterfly swimming on a wall. I also really like how the smoke clears up and comes back. As I can see, one handspring is 8 to 9 frames, and it's so quick that one drawing is 1 frame. Now this here is literally frame by frame animation, because one drawing, 1 frame. Crazy work. We can see how this chaos looks like from the inside of the building as well. And then they arrive, we have a nice camera tilt here, then zooming to MAHORAGA raising his arms up. Wait, is this even a zoom? I'm sure it's not a dolly or push it, because the buildings in the background doesn't get closer to the camera, but MAHORAGA gets closer. Help me out with this one if you are good at camera movement types, please. The cut is right after he claps his hands, then we get a wide shot here with the explosion in the background. The camera is slightly shaking too, I mean figuratively of course, as we are talking about animation. I would like to emphasize how many kinds of camera movements and shot sizes are being used in these sequences in the whole anime actually. The usage of cinematic language in Jujutsu Kaisen is so damn clever. I can see everything is intentional, everything was planned really well, so shout out to the storyboard artists as well. Honestly, this is great cinematography. And by the way, this whole sequence I just analyzed is barely even 16 seconds, it's crazy. At the next sequence I picked, first I want you to pay attention at the animation of the buildings and the pieces flying in the air. This is 2D, these blocks were drawn by hand, that's why I told you to take a close look at it. They even animated the clouds in the background. I'm not sure if those are clouds though, maybe it's smoke. But this must have been very hard to animate, especially because it's a longer scene, it's 120 frames. The pieces and particles falling, how the buildings are moving, the effects animation, everything. The head turn here with the hair flowing and with the strong shadows on the face looks amazing. The color palette slays again. I'd also like you to take a look at the strong contrast, especially the contrast between the blurry lights in the background and the sharp ones in the foreground. The movement is very smooth. Okay, and done. The pure chaos starts with this shot. Everything I've been analyzing so far has been quite chaotic, but now it turns even crazier. The motion blur, flames, color usage, flashy lights, raw drawings. These 6 frames here. Let's praise the coloring team because they really outdid themselves. They deserve to be appreciated. These frames aren't colored the regular way, they use flat colors, which by the way is not an easy task itself, but it's like they painted these. It is so chaotic and artistic at the same time. For example, this frame here looks almost like an oil painting. And it's one goddamn frame because the next one is different again. And they probably added more to it in After Effects, but still the reason it looks so good is because it was animated and colored this way first. The scene still continues, there's no cut. MAHORAGA gets further from the camera, which does the same. We have a pull out with some horizontal movement here, I believe. We can also see SUKUNA's cliff with those sharp black blade-like shapes, a white aura surrounding them. As the cuts reach MAHORAGA, colorful lights appear flashing around him. He is getting further and further away and the lights are gradually disappearing. I want you to take a look at the background and the red shades with the dark grays and black. It looks so damn amazing. I mean, it's kind of sinister or apocalyptic, but you get what I mean. And from the first to the last frames of this scene, we got from a close-up to an extreme wide. And the madness continues. Look at this. Do I even have to speak here? Sukuna's cliff cutting with an insane speed, the buildings shaking and collapsing, the intense red shades with black and white. Bro. Next, we get a central composition with a slower movement. MAHORAGA's white color stands out from that extremely saturated red. His wheel turns with a sudden movement, then he slows down again. Cut, Sukuna. His movement is slow as well. I really like how the past scenes were so quick, it was almost hard to follow some of them, but now the movements in these scenes are slowing down. High contrast, strong shadows, his face can't even be seen. The overhead shots like this one looks so amazing, by the way. Look at the circling yellow light, the concrete matting, and also at the cross-shaped light that slightly flashes up. And then in one frame the rotating light shrinks down and then the light flashes up very intensely. Everything gets blurry, the screen is shaking, the blur gradually disappears and the yellow light under starts rotating again. Its circles pushing out. Okay, this is the next shot I want to talk about. We often hear that Sukuna is pure evil. I think this scene symbolizes that concept really well. We get back to the saturated red, brown, very dark grey color palette again. Almost his whole face, shoulders, arms and hands are covered in shadow. The light touches his face and teeth from the left. His hairline and grin is drawn with red, and what I want you to especially pay attention to is those chaotic lines that are animated on his face. The movement of raising his hands up, the flowing of the color and hair are so smooth and slow, while the lines playing on his face is contrasting that. We also have this red light coming from above, and Sukuna's grin is getting even more unhinged. Cut to MAHORAGA. I won't talk about this one now, but I want to mention this next low angle shot. Just when I thought Sukuna's grin can't get any crazier, I got this. Even his gum is showing. They drew his whole goddamn dentile while more than half of his face is covered in shadow. And with his hands and fingers raised above his head like that, he looks like the devil himself. And look at the can here, the soda flowing out of it, colored pink by the red lights. Really amazing fluid animation. Whoever came up with this idea is a genius. It adds even more to the chaos, though I don't know whether this was in the manga or not. Then we have this scene of Fushiguro. Very smooth movement. This is almost a full morph animation. Pay attention to the changing of the background too. After that, we can see a transition into the next shot. I'm not sure, but maybe the original intention here was to make Fushiguro morph into MAHORAGA, but they couldn't finish it and used a dissolve-like transition instead. What do you think about this? Anyway, look at the chaotic, bright red background with all the ruins. MAHORAGA has no shadows, only flat colors. The white is very prominent again. It emphasizes and contrasts Sukuna's dark color and also the difference in their sizes. The animation is slow. I think if they had had more time, they would have drawn more frames here as it's not too fluid, but it still looks amazing in my opinion. The next sequence I want to break down is Sukuna's domain expansion. Bro, okay. Phew. First we have this black matter or energy circling and growing around him. Everything becomes dark. Simple, raw, symmetrical composition. Everything is fully dark for a few frames. Then we can see the hand seal of his domain expansion, which I find very cool. Look at how raw the lines and shadows are. As the camera is pulling out, bars appear, then start to take up the whole screen. They open, move to the sides, then we can see this circling grayness which morphs into a mouth where Sukuna is standing inside. I'm sure many of you have already noticed how good the JJK animators are at making these morph-like, very expressive, flowy, symbolic animations with different shapes appearing, moving, disappearing. We can see great examples of this at domain expansions and in the second opening of this season, for example. I also really like the monochrome palette and the noise texture here. As the gate gets further, skulls are piling up, everything is becoming more and more chaotic. It almost looks like an intuitive animation where you just follow your instincts when you draw the frames. This scene is 317 frames. Whoever animated it is insane and deserves 6 months of paid vacation. And then we can see all these shots while we are in Sukuna's open barrier domain. I want to praise the background art team. We often forget to appreciate background artists even though their work is extremely important in the industry. I especially want to highlight this scene here. It's a great example of that in animation not everything is about the animation itself. As the camera is zooming out, the position of the foreground, middle ground and background changes 3 times. The dark window frames with the pink and red colors of the building look so damn good. And look at how some of the windows in the distance are light blue and purple. Look at the reflection here, look at how the buildings in the center are pink. They are detailed, then on the sides, the red gloom sits on the city. Insane details, look at how they painted the floor, the tables, the railway and the buildings outside. Obviously they use photo references for scenes like this, but they still have to paint it over, which takes a huge amount of work, like wow. Okay, now, here comes the part that I'm sure got engraved into your brain. The first thing I want to say is that even if this looks extremely chaotic and the frames look kind of random, this must have been very difficult to animate. MAHORAGA is walking towards the camera. He is constantly getting cut. On the beginning frames, he doesn't have contours, and as he's getting closer, the contour appears. His figure and shape are constantly changing, moving and flowing. And on top of that, we can see these chaotic shapes and brush strokes of different colors moving at a high speed. I get that this is not everyone's cup of tea, the animation is very experimental and unique, but in my opinion this slaps. I love this, it definitely worked for me. On the next scene, we can see the typical black sharp cuts of Sukuna's clip. We can see some white lines and lights flashing in. There are sharp gray lines moving fast vertically in the background. The red shapes splashing are MAHORAGA's blood, I think. On some frames they fly in the foreground. We also have a constant shaky camera movement. I really like the strong animation of the clothes and hair. Everything is moving really fast while Sukuna's face, body and hands stay at one place. This is how you can make contrast within one scene, not just with color or light, but with the animation itself. What I want to highlight in this shot is the animation of his facial expressions. He has a smug grin first. He's staying focused the whole time. Eyebrows in a 45-degree angle, dilated pupils. As he opens his eyes more to stare directly towards the camera, his pupils become even more dilated. Then his smile comes back. He slightly lifts his head up. He is keeping eye contact. The inner side of his brows come a little bit down. He closes his eyes. In this moment, he almost looks serene. Literal insanity is what is going on here, but somehow these frames radiate happiness and his inner peace, because that's how much he's enjoying the show. After that, we get an even more evil expression. His head turns slightly downwards, eyebrows going up in a crazy angle, smile turning into a mad smirk. The way his fingers touch, then how he lifts his hands up, palms facing the camera, and going a bit down again is just so smooth. I also like the little red dots on his palm here. It's so cute, it almost makes you forget that he's murdering everyone in a 140-meter radius around him. The red dots and his palms turn hot as he uses his fire technique. Then we can see buildings crashing and collapsing. He is enjoying the madness with his whole being, the fire burning around him, black cuts of his cliff flying, and I want you to take a look at how they animated him. Vertically, he's standing in the center of the scene, and he's moving almost as if he is drunk, almost as if he is dancing. I mean, I know he isn't dancing. The reason he's moving like this is because of the blast of the fire and heat and the air moving around him. He's tiny, but the way they animated him is so expressive. How he's moving from side to side, the motion blur frames, the clothes and hair. In contrast with his dark clothes, he's surrounded by bright orange, yellow and red flames, then with a darker shade of red with lower opacity, and outside of that we can see the dark buildings in the background. And again, this is just so artistic. The yellow and red circle, the grey blocks, the heat radiating. What annoys me is that Sukuna is destroying and killing everything and everyone around him at this moment, but these frames are pieces of art one by one. And then look at this. We had this shot with the intense, bright, warm colors. Right after that, the camera cuts to an extreme wide shot in bird's eye view with cold shades of blue and a little bit of green. Jujutsu Kaisen enjoyers' eyes are fed really well. Alright bestie, that's it. I wish I could have analyzed even more because believe me, I prepared 12 sequences. I hope I still cook though. Let me know if you like this video and if you would like to see similar ones to this, aka more animation analysis. You can let me know what kind of other animation or art related videos you want to see from me. Reading your comments always hypes me up, and if you write down what you want, I know how I can serve, so don't be shy sis or bro. Anyway, thank you very much, stay hydrated and take care. Love and peace.